Howard, could you introduce your staff just for the benefit of the clerk's office listening in?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
That was my intention.
Let's have a way to do a review is the second day. And then
So good morning, everybody. Day 2, FY27 budget sessions. Just kind of a reminder from yesterday that this is a requested budget. This is nothing that is recommended or adopted at this point. This is just really the departments presenting their fiscal year 27 request to the county administrator. And it is intended to be just a conversation between the departments and the county. So any of the public in attendance, we just ask that you just listen and save any comments for when we're on break. There are some things I'll tell you in the budget. So this is kind of a good process for us where we're identifying things that may have been overlooked and putting into the budget, or errors or typos. We'll go through that. And I'll tell you too, there are some items as part of the budget that are not yet complete. So especially for the general fund, the constitutional officer budgets are not due to the board until June 1st. So that information is not yet available. As well as our property tax valuations are not really solidified until July 1st. So we get an estimate on June 1st, but a final value on July 1st. So those revenues right now are estimated. We do have a couple of items that we're uncertain as to what their final, especially for benefits and benefit rates, FRS retirement rates, and our health insurance, employee health insurance rates, as well as some other things we're just kind of monitoring overall in general for all departments, like fuel. Prices have spiked recently. Don't know when they're going to come down, if they're going to come down. We were kind of hoping it would be a short-term thing, but it looks a little bit longer than that. So, and just finally, I mentioned the general fund. There are some other funds that are not in balance at this point. So the requests exceed the estimated revenues. And then there's some additional funds that they may be in balance, but the level of reserves may not be at a level that we're quite comfortable with given, future considerations. So we'll kind of highlight those as we go through them. But we start off this morning with H.T. White and the Building Services Code Enforcement Departments.
Well, thank you, Wade. Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning, everyone present. I'll start off by introducing my staff. I am, again, Howard White. I'm the building official. To my left is Kathleen Nichols. She actually runs our records management division. To her left is Roderick Potter. He runs our code enforcement division. And to his left is Charles Crane. He is the deputy building official and runs a little bit of everything, I think is fair to say. So happy to be here this morning. I'll start off by saying that we are projecting a decrease, a reduction in the building code budget, and just a mild increase in code enforcement, which will be offset by the building department reduction, which I'll explain towards the end of the presentation. But I would like to take this opportunity to share with the public, share with the commissioners and everyone present, a little bit about our operating procedures and how the building department, code enforcement, and record management actually function within the county hierarchy. So I will share some statistics that I think you'll find interesting, and I intend to share a few fun facts that I found out over the years that people actually don't know about the building department, code enforcement, and records management. So with that, with your permission, Joy, I'll go ahead and get started here. We'll begin with Florida State Statute 553.80. So a lot of people don't realize that the building department is actually regulated by state statute. And this is the statute that regulates the building department, state statute 553. That gives us the authority to enforce the Florida Building Code. And it's not, unfortunately, for us, it is not just one volume called the Florida Building Code. The Florida Building Code actually consists of 9 volumes that we are charged by the state of Florida to enforce. And I can go through those very briefly, but it is the Florida Building Code: commercial, the residential, plumbing, mechanical, fuel, gas, existing building code. Let me talk a second about the existing building code. The state of Florida recognizes that if you have an existing building, that you can make some concessions if you're going to be renovating that building or doing changes to that building. So that is a very important volume. We also have the Energy Conservation Code that we're responsible for, the Accessibility Code, the Florida Accessibility Code. I think everyone in the room has heard about that many times over the years. And we also are responsible for the National Electric Code. And so to enforce all the aforementioned items, we are also required by the state of Florida to be licensed through the Department of Business and Professional Regulations. So as building official, I am required to be licensed with the state of Florida under Florida Statute 468 that you'll see up there on the screen. And not only do I have to be licensed by the state of Florida, but all of our inspectors and all of our plans examiners must also be licensed by the state of Florida. This next item, I find interesting. I guess the interesting thing to me is that people aren't aware of what I'm about to say. So way back in 2002, really and truly at the inception of the Florida Building Code, there was some amendments made to the state statute. And one of the amendments that greatly affected building departments around the state of Florida, and Joy and I have talked about this many times over the years, is the alternative plan review and inspection option that contractors and owners have here in the state of Florida. So what does that mean? That basically means that there's an option for contractors and homeowners out there to choose a private provider, somebody other than the building department. And we see that quite a bit throughout the year. Here in St. Johns County, I'd like to say that we provide such a good service that we don't see a great deal of private providers in St. Johns County. I would say about 20% of our volume is by private providers, but we have been in direct competition with the private sector here in St. Johns County Building Department for many, many years. And I can't tell you how many phone calls I've received over the years from people that say, well, first of all, they start off with me upset that we didn't see something on their project or missed something on their project, but I think sometimes they find out it wasn't us after all. So that's always an interesting conversation. All right, next slide, please, Kathleen. So what is it? What is the core of what we do at the building department? And so this is our mission statement that is on our website, but I want to read it because I think it's important. We are charged to ensure all plans, construction documents, specifications, and construction projects are properly reviewed, permitted, and inspected to comply with all federal, state, and local requirements to safeguard life, health, and property within St. Johns County. I want everyone to focus on one of those aspects, and that is federal and state. It is not the St. Johns County Building Code. I wish I had a nickel for every time I heard that. It is actually the state code, and within that state code, we're charged with a great deal of federal responsibility as well. I'll talk about that just a little bit down the road here, but An example of that would be the floodplain program. And I'll share that in just a minute. So next slide, please. So what falls under the umbrella of the St. Johns County Building Department? So as I mentioned a moment ago, we do have our plan review division. We do have our permitting division, our inspection division, and we also have contractor licensing division. Very important. I'll chat about that in just a minute. And within the contractor licensing division, we have the contractor review board. Now that is a board that also licenses contractors in St. Johns County, but at the same time, it also, well, we have hearings for contractors that choose not to behave. So we have that function. We also have code enforcement, and Roderick will talk a little bit about that down the road. Under code enforcement, we have the Construction Board of Adjustments and Appeals. That board is actually housed under state statute, but we utilize that under our code enforcement division. I'll chat about that in a second. And then we have our records management division, all under the umbrella of the St. Johns County Building Department. Next slide. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some facts about the building department that I found out over the years that people just aren't aware of. So the building department is a special revenue fund, and we are, for the most part, almost completely funded by our permit fees. So I think that's an important aspect. So we kind of live and die by our customer service. And if you ask Howard White, what's the number one priority at the building department? It is just that. It is customer service. We get up in the morning and the first thing that should be on our mind is customer service, because that's how, at the end of the day, we make our living. Just that simple. In order to stay in line with state statute requirements, I just want to make this quick brief message here. We currently do have a 30% reduction within our permit fees across the board right now. And the purpose of that reduction is so that our reserves don't outmatch what is regulated by the state of Florida. So we are currently have that in place, and that is obviously a benefit to the citizens of St. Johns County that require a permit. Something I'm very proud of, and I do want to touch base on this a little bit. If I get a little too long, somebody poke me, but many years ago, I established what is called what I named the multi-licensed inspector and plan review business model. And so within St. Johns County, all of our plans examiners, all of our inspectors are all multi-licensed under the state of Florida. So what does that mean? That means that they all, at my requirement, hold all the disciplines within the statute. In other words, they hold building, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing licenses. So at the end of the day, instead of us sending 4 inspectors to a job site, we send 1. Instead of having 4 people review a plan, we have 1. I think you get the message. There's a lot of savings associated with that. There's a lot of service associated with that. And there's a lot of customer service associated with that. The familiarity of working with 1 individual as opposed to 4, sometimes 5 or 6. So that business model has been exceptional for us over the years. Another thing that I'm very proud of, it's all the bugs aren't quite worked out yet, and we're working diligently to get this finished up. But we continue to improve on the implementation of our electronic plan review program. Currently, that program services residential and many other components of permitting across the board. The one area that we haven't perfected to our liking is the commercial aspect. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I won't get into the weeds on all that, but as many of you might imagine, commercial projects are infinitely more complicated than residential and just general permits for decks or for re-roofs or for window replacement. So we're working on that. But hot off the press, I can tell you that about 60% of everything we do on the residential side of the house right now is electronic. And that is both with our plan review and our permitting process. So very proud of that. We still have work to do and we won't give up till it's done. But that is convenience, once again, customer service for our customers out there in St. Johns County. I mentioned earlier, the building department works very, very closely with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. We manage our floodplain program throughout the county, and our code enforcement division and building division also work diligently with FEMA and play a significant role in our local damage assessment program. Folks don't realize that until we get an emergency in St. Johns County, then they know each and every one of us. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So, so as a result of working closely with the federal government and being passionate about our floodplain program in St. Johns County to protect the citizens, I can tell you that our current community rating system, that is our CRS program, that is the program that rates the quality of the building department as it interacts with the floodplain program. It is currently a 5, which is exceptional for a coastal community. I have to say that out loud. Some people say, if you say it 3 times, people understand it. I won't do that. It's a 5 out of 10. Now, the way this works is it's just like golf. The lower the score, the better the score. And so we are currently awaiting our next CRS audit. It was delayed by the government shutdown, the federal government shutdown. So we're anticipating that. And we're also anticipating some better news that may come from our next audit. So we're also excited about that. So what does that score of 5 produce? That score actually provides the citizens of St. Johns County that are required to have flood insurance a 25% flood insurance reduction in their premium. That's big stuff, folks. That's big stuff. What does that equate to in terms of savings for our citizens? About $2.5 million in the county, and that's annually. I want to emphasize that. So that's why we work so hard. That's not something we can avoid or bury our head in the sand over. So that's why we're so diligent about maintaining. Equally as important and tied actually to our CRS program, community rating system, is our insurance services office audit. I know you're tired of hearing me say I'm proud of things, but I'm going to say it one more time. So we just completed our ISO audit, and I'm very excited to mention that we actually have a 3 in residential and a 2 in commercial. So again, that's the same process. Lower is better. I'm very proud of that. And those numbers, that grade, is directly tied to each homeowner's insurance in the community. Now, I've had people ask me over the years, well, how does it tie to my insurance premium reduction? And I have to tell them, only because it's the truth, I have no idea, because that mystery remains out there somewhere in the insurance world. Just to give you an idea, the last audit we had, we were actually a 4 in residential and a 3 in commercial. So we've come down a full point in each one of those categories. So good news on that front. Next slide, please. So I will share some building department statistics with you because I do think they're important. I'm going to remind you that we're a very lean organization in the scheme of things by our business model, but we get a whole heck of a lot done with our force because we're united under the same goal. So last year, we did 13,745 building plan reviews in St. Johns County. We issued a total of 49,182 permits. Folks, that's a heap of permits, but it's good news for us because that, again, how we get paid. And we performed 207,558 inspections. And we did that with 33 building inspectors and plans examiners holding 149 licenses in St. Johns County. Currently, we have a combination of 16 building inspectors and plans examiners are in testing phases right now with the state of Florida. We have a combination of 2 building inspectors and plans examiners are in state cross-training programs, which I am actually the chairman of that program. And we have an outstanding permitting staff. I can't say enough about them that get this done each and every day at our intake counter. And with the building department, we have a total of 62 FTEs. I told you it was lean, and I meant it was lean. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share with you in a graph form just how fickle our industry actually is. And this is the best way I think I could present it to you. So this first slide is our single family detached and attached permits. So that is essentially single family homes and townhomes. So this is a 5-year graph program that goes back to 2022. I don't know if you can quite see the colors on all those, but I think the takeaway, ladies and gentlemen, from this slide is you see where we were just 5 years ago. The graph we almost ran out of paper on that graph up there. And those were significant numbers in terms of our single family permitting. And depending on which side of the fence you're on, that's good news or bad news. And we can talk about that another time. But what I wanted to call your attention to is this year, and this is the fickleness of our industry. So if you look at FY 2026, a little more than halfway through, that is the yellow line, or the orange line, I guess, that's down there. And you see where we are today. It's basically a flat line where we're issuing at or around 230 single-family homes a month. Some people would call that manageable, and I think it is, but it's not what we've been used to. So it's been quite a change to us. And I'll show you what the results of that are further in this presentation. Next slide, please. All right, so this is building permits in general. These are all the incidental building permits that we issue over a period of time. This is everything from window replacements to roofing permits to small remodel jobs to deck, cabanas, gazebos, list goes on and on. But again, the orange line, I want to call your attention. You look, it's basically a flat line. So even that component of what we do at the building department has come down significantly since the past previous years. So, I think that speaks volumes, gives you a visual of where the permitting is here in St. Johns County today. Inspections, again, the same. Thank you, Kathleen, for moving that slide. Way down from years past. But certainly manageable. You see what we're doing in the course of a month. If you look at the gray line down there, 13,000, 14,000, still a significant number of infections under our multi-license business model, but significantly down. So one of those guys that likes to say the better news for last. And so this graph, conversely, it kind of mirrors something we haven't been used to in St. Johns County. This graph demonstrates the commercial permitting that's taken place in St. Johns County. And again, that is your orange line. You'll notice how the line is projecting upwards, something we haven't been used to. I can tell you that our commercial permitting is significant in St. Johns County. I always use this term. I think it's appropriate. Say if you build it, the commercial folks will come, and they have come. And this is a little bit kind of a cornucopia of everything you might imagine, everything from big box stores to grocery stores to hospitals to medical clinics to small restaurants to small businesses. It is just across the board right now. And you'll see that trajectory is up. So it's really an ebb and flow in St. Johns County Building Department. My crystal ball these days is a little foggy. So thank goodness the commercial permitting is on an upward trend. Next slide, please. So I mentioned contractor licensing earlier. I do want to share some statistics. We put a lot of stock in contractor licensing. So why is that? So we want to be comfortable that when a citizen in St. Johns County hires a contractor to do XYZ on their house, that contractor is properly licensed first and foremost, has the insurance that they need. We don't particularly, not fond of contractors doing full gainers off of somebody's roof and having a legal issue. So properly insured and that they are competent. And that's a big piece of it. So we spend a lot of time making sure that the staff that the citizens of St. Johns County choose from are competent. We can't catch everything, but we do our very best. So just a few statistics here. I'll go through them very quick. We issued 9,672 licenses. They're in our database currently right now. They're active status. 113 contractors and journeymen licensed have been approved by our contractor review board I mentioned earlier. 869 open permit investigations took place last year, which is a significant number. And they were complied with. That's even more important, that we resolved those cases. We responded to 487 complaints from our PRIDE system only on the building department side. My colleague Roderick Potter will talk about the PRIDE system on the code enforcement side momentarily. Staff closed a total of 557 at the building department level. The contractor review board heard 3 licensing cases regarding discipline. I mentioned that earlier very briefly for people that have not been treated properly. 1,125 contractor licenses were renewed, and we processed 279 applications for licensing testing. So next slide, Ken. Moving on to code enforcement, and we'll move through this quickly here, but obviously our mission statement on that is to provide effective and efficient county code enforcement in response to all complaints, and I do mean all complaints and investigations in a timely manner and broaden public knowledge of code enforcement. That's an important component. We do a lot of reach out programs for the citizens of St. Johns County to explain to them what the parameters of code enforcement are, and more importantly, what our limitations are. Because people hold us in very high regard, and I appreciate that, but we always don't have the authority that they wish that we had. And again, a common theme, once again, our code enforcement division is regulated by state statute 162. And you'll notice that all of our divisions, thus far in this presentation, all regulated by state statute. It is not just our better idea. Next slide, please. And Roderick, at this point, I'd just like to turn this over so they hear a fresh voice in a minute. And would you please go through the next couple slides and just explain to them how this code enforcement piece of it works with regard to our Pride case?
Sure. Good morning again, everybody. I'm Roderick Potter, Code Enforcement Department. Basically, as HT said, code enforcement is governed by Florida Statute 162. Currently, we have 13 full-time employees in our department, 10 of those being code enforcement officers. We have 2 admin clerical staff and myself. We split the county up into 10 separate zones, so each officer carries a zone of their own that they actually go out and conduct enforcement activities in, which keeps us very busy. Code enforcement department, we receive anywhere between 800 and 1,200 complaints per month. Right now, we're averaging just over 800 at about maybe 805, 810 complaints per month. So it keeps us very busy throughout the month, and we try and get to the inspections and process those cases as soon as we possibly can. Now, the Pride system is what we use. It's an online service that allows us and the citizens to be able to enter cases, track those cases, document what goes on, and make sure that we receive a favorable outcome, hopefully to mitigate the complaints as we receive them and the issues that our customers actually report to us. The more people that get involved, the better it is for us, the better it is for the county, because we all play a part in making sure that we have a safe place to work, live, and play. And the code enforcement officers cannot get out and see everything that goes on in the county. So it is very good when citizens basically join in, let us know what's going on, put these complaints into the system so that we can go out and take a look at it and make sure whether it's in compliance or not. The Pride system is something that it gives us a wealth of information to be able to provide to the residents so that they know that their complaints that they actually report are being handled and worked through. It is an online system, as I stated before, so customers can actually go online, they can register complaints in that manner, or they can call our office and put complaints in with our administrative coordinator themselves, or they can send us an email with the complaint information also. So just to go over the numbers a little bit, as I stated, we have 13 full-time employees, 10 officers. Out of those 10 officers, exactly 5 of those officers have received all levels of certification, which is as far as you can go under the Florida Association of Code Enforcement. For the other 5 officers are working towards receiving all levels of code enforcement, but right now, every single officer that we have in the code enforcement department is certified and have at least face level 1 and level 2 certification. And as I say, level 4 is the highest that you can go. And then you have a code enforcement professional certification where it's pretty inclusive. You have to write a paper. That paper is reviewed much like a college essay or a college 500-word document. So it's pretty stringent, and we have 4 officers that have the CEP professional license. So we have a professional staff, we provide professional services, and just to take a look at some of the numbers here, total number of inspections for fiscal year 2025 was 26,537. Total number of inspections complied for fiscal year 25 was 11,535. And the total number of inspections that were carried forward into fiscal year 2026 was 15,002. Next slide, if I may. This pie chart gives an example of what that looks like so that you can get a better idea. And I know that most people will look at that and say, wow, there's an awful lot of blue there. There's 15,002 cases that are carried forward, which is more than the actual total number of cases that were completed. But that is a direct result of cases that are carried forward are the ones that we have pending. So those cases are either tied up right now in the special magistrate process where they're going through the special magistrate hearings process, or either the officers have granted continuances on certain cases to give more time for compliance, or either those are cases where the customers basically, or the actual violators have requested extensions, and we're working with them to try and gain voluntary compliance rather than kind of hitting people over the head and in their pockets with citations. Voluntary compliance is what our actual goal is, so that's what we strive for first and foremost. So this chart, even though it looks a bit out of line, it makes perfect sense to me when I look at that, because the number of cases that we actually complete each year is going to increase as a direct result of, you know, the county and how the county is progressing. But the carry forward cases, a lot of times they indicate exactly what's going on with the cases and the type of complaints that we receive. And I'll go into that a little bit more if we go into the next slide. When you look at this completed cases chart here, you'll notice there's been a steady increase in the total number of completed cases from 2022 going forward. If you look at 2022, it was a bit higher than the following year in 2023. In 2024, it was pretty close. Now, 2022, basically, we received a large influx of cases for paper complaints. That kind of drove our stats up a little bit for the number of cases that we actually received, number of cases that we were processing and completed. It drug out a little bit so that we can actually get full compliance on those cases or either get them through the system. So that's why you see that slight increase in 2022, which was higher than the following year. But on the whole, you can see where the actual number of completed cases goes up every year. And for fiscal year 26, right now, we have 6,556 cases, which we still have about 5 months left in the fiscal year. So that number is definitely going to exceed what we have for fiscal year 2025. And we're going to see that as a direct result for growth in the county. So as the population increases, the county grows, then so do the number of complaints that we receive, and so does the number of completed cases that we receive. So with that steady increase, we're trying to make sure that we continue to stay on top of these cases and process them through the system. We follow our protocols. We do work with our residents and our customers to make sure that we can gain voluntary compliance. But in certain situations, we still have to stick to our protocols and work these cases through our special magistrate system so that we make sure that we get closure and compliance in order to mitigate all of the complaints that we receive in each month. Next slide. That leads us to the Construction Board of Adjustments and Appeals process. I'll let HT kind of take over on that one and speak to it and go over those numbers as well. Even though it is something that the Code Enforcement Department actually houses, the Construction Board of Adjustments and Appeals is basically driven by the Building Department.
Thank you, Roderick. I would add one thing. Well done. You know, contrary to what a lot of complainants would like us to do, we have to remain within the confines of the state statute. So, you know, we don't have complete authority to do what some people would like to see us do, and I just think that's an important component. So Construction Board of Adjustments and Appeals, I mentioned that earlier. This board actually is driven by the Florida Building Code and state statute. It serves really two intents. One is that citizens of St. Johns County, contractors of St. Johns County, if a decision is made by the building department, this is kind of a checks and balances issue, that they disagree with, they have a forum to go to tell us why they disagree. It's an independent board of their peers that usually have construction experience that's set out in the ordinance. And they can challenge, and we welcome that. Or our decisions are upheld. So that's the primary reason. Secondary reason is, like Roderick said, housed in code enforcement. It does serve a lot of abatement purposes for unsafe structures within St. Johns County. Currently there's several cases in that process. Just a few stats I'll share with you. Total number of unsafe structure cases was 48 cases last year. Total number of unsafe structure cases heard and upheld were 19. So all those cases don't reflect unsafe structures, but just a few quick stats coming out of the Construction Board of Adjustments and Appeals. Next slide, please. Everyone's favorite topic, maybe not, short-term rentals within St. Johns County. So there are 1,078 total short-term vacation rentals eligible within St. Johns County. And currently we have 685 that are active and registered within St. Johns County. Again, I want to turn to Roderick real quick. Roderick, you want to elaborate a little bit? I think that's kind of misunderstood by the public as well. If you can just shine a little light on how that process works.
Yeah, and basically with the numbers, when you look at it right offhand as a quick glance, 1,078 total short-term vacation rentals eligible in the county. That's basically how many we basically have eligible within the county. That's 685 active and registered. That number is inclusive of the ones that we have in our system that are registered and active. However, that number does not reflect the ones that are exempt. So there are many more cases that we have where short-term vacation rentals are in the county. They are they're running, they're operating, there's nothing wrong with them, but they are exempt because they either have a landlord present or a property owner that's present on the property, or it may be a condominium that has an association that actually provides the enforcement for any type of violations that go on. So the number is a little bit tricky to kind of understand how it relates with the total number of short-term vacation rentals. Now, when you look at the short-term vacation rentals, the numbers again are a little tricky because it's a constant moving target. Based on the growing number of short-term vacation rentals in the county, as the county grows, as it develops, people are buying lots, they're building homes. A lot of people on the coastal area are building these homes specifically to be short-term vacation rentals. So as they increase on a weekly basis or a monthly basis in direct relation to the building permits, we see that that number of total short-term vacation rentals eligible is going to increase in direct proportion with these properties that are turned into vacation rentals. So it's a moving target in that aspect. Another way that it can be a little crafty and moving is because of the advertisements. What we do is we work with a third-party company that basically scours the internet, social media. They look for advertisements for all short-term vacation rentals, which allows us to go out and do our jobs to make sure that they're all registered. People get a little crafty these days. So what they'll do is they drop an ad, and then they add an ad, and they drop an ad, and they add an ad. What that does is it skews the numbers again, because I may drop an ad and show that I have a vacant short-term vacation rental. I may book it for a week or 2 weeks out, and then I remove the ad. So what happens is when our company goes and they do these searches, they call them crawls, they don't see these properties. And it's like, okay, the property dropped off, so the numbers drop. But then after the 2-week bookings are up and they put the ad back on, then all of a sudden it pops back in. So we've been working with the companies and trying to tweak the process so that we can make sure and pick up these ads and make sure that we have total bookings out for months in advance. So even if they drop these ads, we still can see that they are short-term vacation rental, and we can make sure that they have the proper registrations. So that's something that we're working on in order to make our numbers a little bit more steady, so that we can make sure that every short-term vacation rental is registered in the county. We have the proper contact information so that if something goes on, loud parties, parking issues, anything of that nature, we can get out and make sure that those things are being addressed. In addition to making sure that we do have them registered and that the county is aware and receiving that revenue from the registrations. Another thing, the active registrations that we have, they don't include the exempt properties, which actually lowers our compliance total. So when you look at the 685 that are actually registered within the county, then that number would be a lot higher if we included the properties that are exempt. So it would make our compliance numbers look a lot better than what they look like when we just show the actual real numbers of the registered properties.
That's perfect, Roderick. Let me add something to that, if you don't mind. We do have 1.5 FTEs specifically involved in short-term vacation rentals. To Roderick's point, it is a moving target. It takes constant vigilance to stay on top of short-term rentals. The other one thing I want to add is our ordinance reflects what we were able to do after being preempted by the state of Florida.
Correct.
So I know that some people call us constantly and tell us that other jurisdictions are doing X, Y, Z, and I'm certain they are, but we're limited by the preemption of the state of Florida as to what we were able to do. So we feel good about the ordinance in terms of, you know, what it covers, but there are some limitations within it.
Yeah, and one last thing I'd like to point out, just to give you an idea of this being a moving target. Since this presentation was actually created, the active registered numbers have increased to 824, which is actually at 76%. So it's up from 685 to 824 in what, a matter of a couple of weeks?
Yeah, we rest our case.
So that gives you an idea of how the numbers kind of fluctuate for the short-term vacation rentals. I mean, we can be looking at one thing in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later, those numbers can skyrocket, and then maybe another week or 2 weeks after that, they can drop down and be lowered again. What we are finding, though, is a lot of these numbers are consistently staying upward because more and more short-term rentals are here to stay. But that's going to be something that's it's volatile as far as how that market is going to move. So if the short-term vacation rentals are doing well throughout the country, then our numbers are going to consistently be high and they're going to increase. If short-term rentals are starting to do bad and people going back, you know, to staying in hotels or staying with family, then those numbers will start to decrease as well.
Thank you, Roderick. We'll move through now in the interest of time.
Can I just ask one thing to Roderick? Sorry to interrupt. Does that include or not include the city, your numbers?
It does not include the city.
Thank you. Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, our record management division, managed by Kathleen to my left. Again, I want to point out our record management division is regulated by state statute 119. I wanted to share a couple quick stats with you because this has gone up extensively over the years. So during FY25, our records management team received and complied 5,268 public records requests. And that is everything you can imagine. We have provided, you know, papers, letters, maps, books, tapes, photographs, films, sound recording, okay, data processing, software, and every other material you could possibly think of. So this is a huge undertaking. I only see it escalating as the years go on. And projected budget for FY 2027. Again, proud to announce that the building department is not going to does not intend to request any new FTEs for this budget. And the budget at our projection right now will be reduced by approximately $1,657,707. The proposed overall budget at this time, or projected, might be a better term, about $20,664,864. Proposed, projected for code enforcement budget, approximately $2,142,369,000. And there is a slight increase of about 3.7%. At least that is our math on it right now. And that increase is, I think, maybe obvious to Roderick's presentation on the increased workload, overtime, special cases, projects that we've had to work on the weekends and so forth and so on. And we've had a uptick, maybe a significant uptick in special magistrate hearings now, since the special magistrate has been on board, in uniforms and general vehicle costs that I think that Wade had touched on at the inception of this presentation. I would be remiss if I didn't mention to everyone here that we have completed the Public Service Center I invite everyone, if they have a moment, to come by, because I love showing off the Public Service Center. And here's a rendition of that completed building. It was not the entire building. It was from the center core to the left in this photo. And I did want to include some interior pictures of it. And on a good note here, that's the main entry to your left. That is the main entry ceiling foyer area. And there is, to the lower right, is our intake area with our fantastic permitting staff. Helps us. And then here's a picture of the Public Service Center, 4040 Lewis Speedway, with our whole team, not our entire team, you know how that goes. But our whole team out in front, and that includes our inspectors, plan reviewers, code enforcement, licensing, permit, and records management staff. So that concludes our presentation. I think I went over time, Joey, but you expected that of me. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has at this time. And I'll open it to the floor or not.
Well, I appreciate the very thorough presentation, and I never expected less. Just for the other 22 departments are coming up, that is not expectation, but I certainly welcome that. We used 99 pages of 100 page to do a St. Johns County Citizen Academy 101 as a additional session to the 2 sessions that we have this year. But I think that it is appropriate because it's the complexity of your department with multi-divisions and the amount of workload. And I would say building department, the way that I look at our 2 things are really top-notch in just the entire county operation. One is your culture of customer services. So we generally talk about departments that either is service-oriented, which public works, library, parks. Traditionally, we think about those departments as service-oriented. So we are here to provide service. Then we have department that is regulatory, which is entire building service department. Your building permit, your inspection, your code enforcement, everything about building services is a regulatory department. But what is outstanding of your culture is that you regulate as the foundational function of the department with the priority of customer services. That is sometimes can be a dichotomy, but you do it really well. Even code enforcement, your code enforcers, Roderick, are respectful, even though they're out there doing things to keep people in compliance of our codes, which is very difficult to be well received. But I think most of our citizens, especially the one being forced on, can respect what you're doing. Not to mention the large population of a county residents, you're there to protect their rights from violation from other violation of the codes. So I wanted to mention that is not to be understated. I think you have been here for not long enough with the county. I would like for it to be longer. Instill that culture in the building department. And I think, code enforcement had not always been part of building services. And it was just a recent 4 years transition. I think it was such a
little bit longer
than
time flies when you're having fun.
Time flies, yeah. But I think your ability to partner with your team, Roderick, to bring also that cultural to the code enforcement is incredible. The other thing I wanted to mention that is probably not known to everybody. Kathleen, she not only is the head of public records, but also our head of economist. I say that because there's a way indicator coming out of Kathleen's monthly report is that I use as a intermediate and immediate indicator of our economy of St. Johns County. The number of single family permits that we use, well, the report that we use is a direct indication of what type of services we're going to be expecting to deliver. We talk about the ratio between the commercial and residential, which has gone to the right direction in the past few months. We're very encouraged by that number. We're at 1.5 to 1 ratio between residential and commercial. That has been the highest ratio when it comes to commercial development that I've ever seen. So that is really, really encouraging. I think that's a direct impact of some of the public policies that our board have made, encouraging commercial development, and also, of course, the management of the residential growth as well. I would say building permits is a immediate indicator for our economy, and the expectation and burden on the county organization to deliver services. And in contrary, I would say intermediate to long-term indicator is our development agreement. So we know 10, 15 years from now, because as you start to have these development agreements, for it to be translated to the building permit, it takes 10 to 15 years. So I think to use those two stats to really project the type of services that we're going to be expected of by our community has always been very accurate. So I wanted to mention that. And thank you, Kathleen, for always being very consistent in creating those pie charts and bar charts. Thank you. I wanted to mention about the staffing, because I think maybe some of the residents look at your number, automatically think, okay, well, your workload is going down. Maybe it's time for reduction of workforce. I wanted to mention that topic because you and I both lived it through the last recession. And I think I can probably quickly articulate that we're not going there for a number of reasons. One is that we learned from 2027, 2028 recession, the involuntary separation from some of the employees based on the economic status at the time created huge burden for re-recruitment and retrain. And the cost of that is almost cost opportunity for, when it comes down to what we could have done with that kind of a staffing level. We did what we needed to do at the time to survive, because in a special revenue fund, there's only way to balance is your fee. There is no other subsidy. There is no other way of generating revenues. And we weren't willing to go to increase fees, because the fee also can be viewed as a really effective tool to affect behaviors and public policies. So with that said, I think your multi-licensed model has worked so well in times like today that we are now so easily repurposing our staff to do things, our commercial, our residential, our inspection. So I think that we're right-sized. We're very agile and elastic to what economic stats fluctuation is today. So I appreciate what you do to build a business model that is sustainable for the fluctuation of the market. And that is not to be understated either. So I wanted to emphasize that as well. When it comes to fee, you had mentioned about commercial, residential too, the allowance by the state statute for private inspectors. I know the burden it has been placed on our, and Baba just talked about this earlier before we came in here. Many of your staff now is dedicated to fix the errors that are made by private inspectors. I think the intention of the state laws are good. We want to deregulate as much as we could. We want to relax our regulation method as much as we could, but with the foundation of holding up the state laws and state local codes. With that said, I know we talked about, in terms of fee reduction, yes, we have a 30% across the board fee reduction in place. I think that is necessary. In terms of to be true reflection of what the cost of services that is today, and also, of course, manage your reserve. And I'm going to talk about the reserve just in a bit as well, because that is something to be noted just for people who don't know about the reserve. But I think that is a good way to manage the reserve to a level that state statute allows it for to be. So that's good. But I also do think that fee is a very effective way to guide behaviors to the right direction. And so when it comes to private inspection, if there's a cost administratively from our staff to correct private inspections errors, I think that cost needs to be captured, and they need to be captured adequately, so that not only that you're recuperating the cost that goes into the services that's rendered by other people, but you're also rendering the service on the back end. And the other thing is that it also guide our clients to know it's not a cost saving for you to use a less costly private inspector, but there is a back end cost that has been absorbed by your staff and it's not reflected anywhere else. And that is being paid for by other clients that have nothing to do with this private inspection. So I think that is something we should look very seriously to implement some cost introduction for the correction that your staff has to do.
We'd be happy to look at the parameters state statute allows with that.
Yeah.
One point I want to make on this excellent point you're making is that, the private provider, the alternative plan review and inspection, that is specific to just what I said, plan review and inspection. It doesn't take into account all the other parameters that go with the issuance and the closing of a permit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gets confused out there in the public. We play both roles. We work with all the other departments and do what the building department responsibilities are to bring it to closure. That's not the case on the private side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an important point you made.
Yeah, so you do have, it's very distinctly different business models. So the way they incur costs is very different as well. And ultimately, you are the state statute required building officials. So you will be responsible for the safety of whatever building that's being built.
I know that all too well.
And with that, you still have not been here long enough.
I appreciate that.
So just touch on the reserve. State statute allows for, what is the percentage that you cannot exceed in terms of your operation versus your reserve?
We cannot exceed the average of 4 years.
4 years. Okay, so 4 years of operation. So we shared the picture of public service center. I really, really appreciate the innovative thinking. So at the time we were thinking about putting a public service center, we have a dream of a facility that is a one-stop shop that can create a space where our residents can come in and do all their business, make a complaint to Roderick, ask for a copy of budget from Wage, and check out their books and get married and get divorced and pay their tickets, and of course, apply for a permit. And how many years later now? I'm afraid to say years. 30 years? 30 years in making? Of that building?
We were 2.5 years.
Yeah.
In the whole process.
Yeah, and so I want to say that is a very financially innovative way of interpreting the state statute, what is allowed to be used while using the building officials' permit fee collection to build buildings. We were able to, and of course, work with Wade and Budget Office and legal, making sure that we're interpreting the depreciation of your existing buildings before you moved, and creating space that's needed for all staff outside of building officials. But it is I think a continuity of services that is connected to the building services.
Okay.
So it was a reduction of 12 million with some change in the last couple of fiscal year to across multi-years to build that building.
Yes.
So now we have a brand new building that is not anything less than what our residents deserve. And
I agree. And,
Yeah.
and in fact, I would add that it's absolutely state of the art.
Yeah.
My recall, taking back in history a little bit, built the first building north of 20 years ago. And it, unfortunately, like everything else, it became mildly antiquated. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to say the new building is state of the art in providing our customers with everything they need from soup to nuts.
Yeah, and then you're graciously inviting new neighbors from purchasing to clerk's court and all the other departments that are now just crammed in their space. So it is a win-win. So thank
They
you.
call me
for-
Mr. Benevolent.
Or landlords.
No.
Yeah, so that's really, that's a really big accomplishment in terms of sustaining our operation in the most cost-effective way. So
I agree.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for that comment.
So I have just one question. In the era of artificial intelligence, plans review, permits review, outside of in-person inspection, anything can be repeated as a process, can be potentially a subject of taking advantage of artificial intelligence. So tell me what you thought about that.
Well, we're very cognizant of that.
Okay.
In fact, the Building Officials Association of the state of Florida, a few years back, really investigated, the applications of that. Currently, I can tell you that there are engineers that have called us and spoke with us about reviewing plans under the AI content. And to date, I'm not, because it's so advanced, it's hard to determine what may be coming to us in an AI fashion. But currently, we're not receiving, as far as we know, any plans that are completely reviewed under the AI concept. We're still dealing with the human factor of architects and engineers at this point in time. We see that, it's going to happen. I mean, it's inevitable. So we have begun to go down that road mildly. I wouldn't say to a large extent, to look at what the good news of that or the bad news of that may project. But
Gotcha.
we haven't seen a lot of that to date.
Okay.
But we are seeing, on the other hand, conversely, on the inspection side, we are seeing inspections done, via camera and that type of thing. It's a little off the AI concept, but we're getting innovative.
Yeah.
It's, from our perspective, it's what the customer desires. And, that's what we're going to adapt.
Sure. And Angie and I, we have kind of talked about that a year ago, we started sort of evaluating countywide what AI can be beneficial in our operation in terms of a cost saving, and in many instances, maybe consistency in accuracy. And growth management is one of the areas that we talked about. HR, procurement, and building services is a little unique because just like you said, maybe 5 times, that everything you do is subject to state statute. So we want to make sure if we do evaluate something like that, it is consistent with the laws.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Jesse and Brad?
No.
Bubba, you've been quiet.
I'm good.
Kathleen, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, great presentation.
I thank y'all for coming.
Yeah.
If I went over,
It hasn't
I
been only
apologize.
gone over for 30 minutes.
That's double.
Actually, no,
I
30,
did.
40 minutes.
I didn't want to disappoint you. Thank y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Roger, I would say not only your
Thank you,
case,
Bubba.
but
Good seeing you.
every single case is like 500 times in the
Unplugged.
She came back and now she's working in this new position.
Good morning, still morning. Just want to introduce myself. I'm Christine Valier. I am the Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs Director, presenting the FY27 budget request. I'll introduce my team member, Mary Beth Beck. She's our manager over both programs. Traditionally, these two departments have been separate and they're being consolidated through this process. And so I will present both programs and budget requests. To give you a little background and my involvement, I started as the Economic Development Director in October of 2025. About a month later, I became the Interim Director of Intergovernmental Affairs. First things first, I saw a necessity to build out both teams, and I was able to hire about 6 people by the end of January. 3 full-time for economic development and 5 for the intergovernmental affairs side. Both Mary Beth as the manager and our newest team member, Olivia Moray, is providing administrative support to both teams. Beginning with economic development, I just want to share some principles and how we do things. The economic development team is dedicated to fostering a resilient and diverse economy through strategic partnerships, business development, workforce initiatives, and long-term planning. The department focuses on attracting new businesses, supporting the expansion of existing enterprises, and enhancing the local workforce. The county works collaboratively with regional, state, and local partners, including the St. Johns County Chamber of Commerce, First Coast Technical College, the U.S. Economic Development Administration, Florida Department of Commerce, JAX USA, UNF, FPL, JEA, and many others to support economic growth and regional competitiveness. And through these partnerships and resources, the department helps advance business attraction, expansion, workforce development, infrastructure readiness, and overall quality of life in St. Johns County. So as you can see, this economic development does not occur in a vacuum. We are part of a very robust network in the Northeast Florida area, not just St. Johns County. And building these relationships with our partners is vital to our success. The strategic plan that the county adopted at the end of 2024 really guides what the economic development team focuses on. One of the 6 pillars of the strategic plan is completely owned by this team. That's the economic prosperity pillar. I have the 6 objectives listed here. Roughly, number 1 objective is to enhance the proactive approach to identifying and attracting industrial and commercial businesses suitable for St. Johns County to diversify the commercial tax base. That's important for economic resiliency purposes. We'd like to have a good mix of properties to help buffer out the economic downturns that are more difficult for residential properties and the volatility in residential property values to manage. The second is to invest in economic incentive programs in target industries to expand the local economy and create jobs. Third, cultivate a strong workforce pipeline through community partnerships to meet the needs of employers. Fourth, boost local business competitiveness and sustainability by partnering with development networks for access to resources, training, and technical support. 5, provide resources and solutions to local agricultural businesses through partnerships aimed at enhancing their sustainability. And 6, cultivate an innovative and vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem that fosters startup and entrepreneurial activity throughout the county. These are some of the projects and programs that this team is currently working on. Projects include The Convention Center lease amendment. Shortly after I came on, I was involved in negotiating a lease amendment to the new owner of the Renaissance Hotel in Wolfhall Village. We had a new owner purchase the property last summer. Sun Companies purchased, and the owner of that business wanted to invest $20 million in upgrading that hotel. And in order to do that, we needed to extend the lease to guarantee an additional 15 years in order to secure financing for that. Economic Development Administration grant, that's through the federal government for the Hastings campus. That is an ongoing project in partnership with the Federal Economic Development Agency and the school board. They are nearing completion of the first phase of that project towards the end of this summer. When that's finished, as originally envisioned, that will be a training center for diesel and solar related manufacturing jobs. And as part of developing this project, we work with local and area employers to guarantee 500 jobs to graduates. The countywide commercial real estate assessment, that's an ongoing program or process this team is picking up and will complete in-house. We'll look at our inventory of properties throughout the county, identify those areas that are most likely either entitled or could be entitled for commercial industrial development. And then we have the economic development website that has been launched as of last month. That is a standalone premier flagship economic development website for the county. It has a significant amount of information presented in a very interactive way and a very easy to digest way. That email or that website is investsjc.com, and I invite anybody to take a look at it and give us feedback. Reach out, let us know what you think. Other programs that we're currently working on, business retention and expansion, that is focused on retaining and offering assistance and support to our existing businesses. This is really important. We want to keep our current partners, and we do that through a few ways. We are having a year-long program to interview at least 2 or more industrial and commercial businesses a month to learn about what their plans are, what their needs are, how can we best support them. But also we plan to have a mixer later this summer. Some businesses may be thinking about expansion opportunities and may not know how to do that. So we'll bring together businesses that are typically involved in expansion of businesses and construction, contractors, banking, planners in one room. So those businesses that are thinking about it but haven't quite taken that next step will be connected with parties that can make that happen for them. Business attraction program, that's very important. We recently hired, one of my hires for this team was a business attraction specialist. That's Aaliyah Meyer. She came to us from the St. John's Chamber of Commerce, so she was already very well connected with the business community in this county, but she's largely responsible for responding to requests for information that we receive through the state Select Florida Economic Development Team, also building relationships with our regional and stakeholder partners, and laying the foundation for targeting our industries that we want to attract that the board has identified as desirable for that community, for our community. And just to touch on what some of those target industries are, that's clean tech, healthcare, information technology, advanced manufacturing, aviation and aerospace, corporate headquarters, transportation and logistics, distribution, homeland security and defense. Right now, we're seeing a tremendous interest in healthcare businesses coming in, mostly in healthcare service, and aviation and aerospace technology, manufacturing in particular. So with the healthcare industry, really, we're seeing a bit of a renaissance in that area within the next 3 years, we have so many new healthcare services coming on board, from new hospitals to hospital expansions to these new paradigm of standalone emergency care clinics. They're coming on board in such a degree in the next 3 years. We're anticipating a need for filling 3,500 jobs, which is huge. So one thing my team did in partnership with Florida Technical College, or First Coast Technical College rather, and the Chamber, is in April, we hosted a healthcare career expo. That was very well attended. Over 160 folks attended, interested in careers in our burgeoning healthcare industry, and that was partnered with over 40 businesses, not just hospitals and clinics, but also businesses that support that industry as well. Aviation and aerospace is a very hot industry, coming not only to St. Johns County in Northeast Florida, but also the state of Florida in general. We're developing a relationship to support the St. Augustine Airport as it moves through spending its $15 million in infrastructure grant and federal appropriation money to improve airport development, not only on the east side, but on the west side of US 1. The airport owns over 700 acres on the west side of US 1, already zoned for airport development. So we'll be working with them to help input with developing and site readiness and then marketing when they're ready to do so. The county's economic development incentive program, that's what the county's typically seen as their incentive opportunities to attract new industry. That ordinance has been in place since 2014. The next slide, I'll show you what we're budgeted for this year and provide you a little bit more information about what we were able to award last year. Generally, we have 3 categories of business opportunities: new industry, expansions to existing, and speculative development. Spec warehouse is typically in that space. So that is an opportunity. It's not an entitlement. Everything is up to the discretion of the Board of County Commissioners, but that's an opportunity to incentivize development through partial rebate of county property taxes and or impact fees and utility connection fees. Then we have a newer program to economic development through the Young Professionals in Education program. Surrounding counties have a similar program, but that's intended to recognize and reach out to our young professionals and help them interact with folks who could provide mentorship and opportunities so they can learn about how they can use their new degrees and stay in St. Johns County and build that resilience through the industry to recruit and retain young professionals. So this is the proposed budget for the incentive program. We have added a few more businesses. We've added 8 new businesses. You can see from Urban Flex down, being eligible for rebate starting in FY27. So the way that this particular program is budgeted, we look at all of the active agreements that could potentially request a rebate in the fiscal year. Most of the incentive agreements require them to hit certain milestones, largely around employment metrics. There are businesses that may not be eligible for requesting a rebate. Typically, we see actual rebates paid out at the end of the fiscal year at a sometimes significantly lower rate than what was budgeted. For example, FY25 was budgeted at about 1.1 million. At the end of that fiscal year, the rebate payout was around 500,000. So whatever is left over gets rolled into the next rebate budget cycle. A few highlights for economic development. Like I said, we distributed 539,000 in FY 25. We're still in the cycle for FY 26. Businesses eligible for rebates have until September 30th to make those requests for rebates for FY 26. Hired a business attraction specialist, have a healthcare expo in April, and launched our economic development website. Moving on to intergovernmental affairs, a bit about what this team does. They develop and execute strategies to secure appropriations, competitive grant funding, and partnerships for capital improvement projects and programming prioritized by the Board of County Commissioners. As directed by the board, the office also advocates for or against public policies that may affect St. Johns County. And the office cultivates new and strengthens existing relationships with the Florida legislature, the executive office of the governor, state and federal agencies, the U.S. Congress, state constitutional officers, regional governmental organizations, local governments, and other stakeholders. So again, another team that's very reliant on developing and maintaining relationships with key stakeholders to achieve their goals. Some highlights from intergovernmental affairs. We hosted St. Johns County Day this year in Tallahassee. That event hadn't happened, I think, in a couple of decades. It was very successful. The county took over the entire courtyard at the Capitol for a day and brought all sorts of what's best from St. Johns County, from alligators to cuisine, music, circus, literally a circus. So it was very rewarding, and it's a program that we intend to do from year to year. Moving on, we're already planning for next year. The board also approved funding for an authorization for an agricultural advisory committee that will be key to developing a better relationship with the agricultural community, taking input from them, feedback from the ag community on a regular basis, and being more intentional with developing programming and opportunities to support the ag community. There's some overlap with economic development. Agricultural technology, or ag tech, is a burgeoning industry in Florida, and so we were looking to explore that as an opportunity for our ag community as well. We also support a lot of agritourism and public events to have folks come in and learn more about our ag community and what it has to offer. Recently, we had the Tour de Farm, which offered participants to visit 5 farms one Sunday afternoon. I participated. It was great, and I think the ag community was really appreciative of the interest and the participation from the public, and I would expect to see more similar events in the future. We also are involved in supporting their other seasonal events like the Potato and Cabbage Festival and other agritourism that they have on a regular basis. As far as grant funding, so far, just in FY 26, the county has secured more than $33 million in grant and appropriation funding. Last year, that amount, or the amount for FY 25, totaled $56 million. So I think we're on a good track record this year. With the strategic planning, while intergovernmental affairs doesn't have a whole pillar to be responsible for, we are responsible for some other issues in a collaborative way to provide more funding for various aspects, such as acquisition of conservation lands, funding acquisition for resiliency projects, and also funding for transportation projects. So
All
this
pillars apply to you.
No. So this is a budget request for both departments. The first 2 lines are the FY 26 budgets, and the last 2 are the current budget requests. With consolidating the departments, we do have some cost savings. We have about a 15% reduction in the intergovernmental affairs budget request and a 16% reduction in the economic budget for FY '26. And so that does include the 2.89 million for projected rebates if everybody meets their milestones and makes a request this year. That's also funding for our external partners through the Chamber, Jax USA. Kimberly Horn is pivotal as a technical assistant with consultant with the more involved grant applications around transportation and utility projects. And then UNF, that SBDC is Small Business Development Center, and they help with that sector of the business community. And one thing that the board did moving forward in FY '26 is they waived or they discontinued the impact fee waiver. So that's no longer available for commercial and industrial development. We'll be collecting full impact fees moving forward.
Which is roughly a saving of 2 million per year.
Yes,
Based on the last,
Mhm.
yeah.
yes. So with that, I'm available for questions.
I don't have any questions. I think that the most important thing that for me is that Christine is here and we have a fully staffed 2 departments. When Christine arrived, we have Christine and Joy. That was pretty much it. Yeah. And before Christine was just Joy. So I'm so appreciative, and I think that your willingness to come back to St. Johns County after your career as the legal counsel on the other side, hopefully is as rewarding for you as it is for the rest of the team. Your expertise is crucial for achieving these new strategies and new model of promoting economic development, but at the same time run the intergovernmental fair with a pretty substantial cost savings. And of course, I know one of the savings is that you're doing 2 people's jobs. So we appreciate that. And when we saw the opportunity that with your capacity, that is not to take advantage of you as individual, but the capacity that you offer is more than adequate for leading the 2 departments in a new way that can not only cost to save St. Johns County, but also produce return on investment that is unprecedented. So I'm looking forward to the new strategies and looking forward to the new investments that we're going to make in economic development and reprioritizing what's important for St. Johns County, which we're excited about the aerospace, aviation,
Yes.
healthcare, and then the new conversation about the agri-tech. That I know that you guys have been talking to multiple inquiries that may be interested in St. Johns County. And reprioritizing how we promote St. Johns County because of the challenge of the lack of product to supply if we were able to attract in a business. So reprioritizing on the right time frame and the right approach to develop those products in line with our comprehensive plan and strategic plan and everything. So with that said, I really don't have any questions. You guys have any?
Well, first of all, I'd like to recognize Jesse was interim in there for a while.
That's right.
remember?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And Tara somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's like, yeah, just come in to play.
It's Savannah.
It's a mess. Yeah.
But other than that, excellent.
So they're all glad
excellent
Christina's
presentation.
here.
Yeah.
Everyone's happy Christina's here. Yeah, that's right.
We're excited. And Mary Beth, of course, wealth of knowledge coming back from library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for the kind words. I'm very excited to be here in a different capacity. In this role, I feel more connected to implementing the direction and the goals of the board, and I find that very rewarding.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, we made up some time for HP's SJC 101.
Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Who's next? Are they next ones?
Growth man.
Growth.
forget, like, it links to the overall budget, just feel free to go in there too anyway, because I thought that would have. We didn't do that.
Sure. All right, I guess we'll get started with the growth management budget for fiscal year 27. I'm Mike Robertson, the Director of Growth Management. We'll jump right in. So we'll touch briefly on the mission, the divisions, some of the workload in there a little bit, just for people to understand what we do if you don't know already. Requested budget, some of the review inspection data that kind of shows what's going on maybe in the economy. Electronic submittals and payments to show maybe we're going in the future. Approved budget, FY26, some of the things that we've accomplished at the budget that we were given, and then some challenges. So with that, I always lead with the mission. Well-designed, efficient, healthy, and safe and good developments, but you also have the environmental side of things that try to balance that out as well as cultural. So to do that, these are just the divisions, and I won't hit necessarily everything here, but to understand you have different components in the mission, right? You have to have a efficient, safe development. Same time, you have to have trees on site and landscaping, things like that. So we have an environmental division, and they actually look at new development comes in to make sure that they have all the necessary trees and replace the ones that they removed off site. We also have historic and cultural designations and code that requires if there is something that has a historic it's a landmark or something like that, we make sure that there's additional regulations there to maybe preserve it, or if they need to modify it, but they go through a process. And with that, you also have a cultural resource review board that, of course, we're helping manage them and get them the resources they need to make calls. With that, we also have a land acquisition management program, which most people are aware of, and that's looking for land that's available to put in conservation or preserve it to allow people to use it, but it's not really developed. Maybe parks and recs will get used. Technical transportation, that's a lot of our engineers, our transportation planners. That's big on the front right now because of traffic and things like that. So we are looking for concurrency when development come in and maybe there's a deficient roadway. So we're doing the analysis to make sure that the proper improvements are done on the front end. And likewise, if it's not deficient, they're doing safe improvements that they need to just get into their site, right? Our engineers are looking at that, turn lanes, signalization and such. State funds for public transportation services, we work hand in hand with Public Works, right, to do some of these big projects, especially for developers pitching in along 210, things like that, right? You all are aware of. Inspect projects, we all do that. And then floodplain management, actually, Dick D'Souza and Clint Lynch work with J.W. Brown to make sure that you heard Howard talk about that. And our staff is managing that process. Planning and zoning, they do a lot of review as well. They're the ones who often are answering a lot of questions with the public. What can you do on your property? Those types of things. Like, can I do a medical use? Can I do single family with a commercial use? Those types of things. We had over 250 confirmation letters last year that were asked of people, and that's basically where the planner has to go in and evaluate everything they've asked us to do to answer. Maybe they're looking at buying a property or things like that. So that takes a lot of time in addition to the planners are taking things to the meeting. Most of that is planning, right? Rezoning, comprehensive plan amendment, land development code changes, all that stuff. In addition to that, you have a lot of boards under growth management, or at least the growth management services, the overlay districts for Ponte Vedra, Mid Anastasia, South Anastasia, North Coastal, Ponte Vedra Zoning and Adjustment Board, as well as the Planning and Zoning Agency. So some of those are precursors to go to the Board of County Commissioners, right? So there's a lot they do, and they prepare most of the time. They're doing the staff reports that you see. All right, they're gathering all the information from all these other divisions. And then finally, development review. That's mostly intake. We have a lot of great technicians and specialists that are down there taking in, and you'll see shortly that a lot of this is coming in electronically now, but they're still managing that to get it out, divvy it out, put timelines on it. Track developer obligations. Lisa Brown, as we know, does a lot of that with impact fees. We have our new impact fee ordinance. There's some challenges there. Those are higher fees, right? So we have some concerned citizens, right, of these higher fees that we're trying to work with. And they manage the development review committee, which is a weekly meeting that helps people understand maybe some comments that we sent out. We allow them to have a Q&A with us. So that's in a short, and then if I did mention environmental, the habitat conservation plan, that's an important one right now. That's what ultimately allows beach driving. And they are reviewing that right now as per state law. It's going through. We don't think there's going to be any significant changes that the county will have to implement at this time. We did a lot of public outreach. I think staff went to 28 different places, as well as we did an online survey. So that's in the process right now. I mentioned to Joy that we have a grant that we've been awarded, but it hasn't been distributed yet. So we're waiting on that. That should help pay for a good portion of that habitat conservation plan. The contractor who's it. So any questions so far? Here's the budget. You can tell that growth management's primary cost is in personnel. And again, personnel does all those numbers. The operational budget, you can see it's from FY26 to FY27. It's been significantly dropped. We had the comprehensive plan update, which was done by a consultant, the impact fee consultant. So those are gone. That's why you see a big reduction. But otherwise, it's probably right about standing at the same. Growth management doesn't typically do capital improvement projects. What we do have capital or vehicles, and fleet maintenance, of course, instructs us when a vehicle is getting long in the tooth, and they would say to replace it. But at this time, we're sufficient with all of our vehicles. So that said, with the reductions or the elimination or completion of those consultant fees from last year, we're down about 5%. So pretty straightforward. On that. So FY27, no FTE request, no vehicles, and then we've completed the impact fees. 28K for educational opportunity certification. So we have a lot of professional staff that requires whether it be a PE. We have an architect on staff. We're excited about that. She just passed all of her tests. She is going to be the advisor to Ponte Vedra. So we're real excited about that because a lot of our Ponte Vedra has architectural concerns and stuff, and we didn't have that expertise. So we're really excited about that.
Is that
So
the one
really
that's
cool.
paid for 50% by?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
From the Ponte Vedra Municipal Services District that pitched in, they wanted that service up there. So Carla Castillon,
Okay.
yeah, she's into planning. But we're real excited about her. So things like paying for their certifications, planning certifications, professional engineer certifications, all of those things, as well as any conferences that are necessary, CEUs, etc. Over time, about 70% of our employees are non-exempt. With all of these requests that have been happening recently and state statute changes, right, you have to respond to those, and that's taking time. It would take time. We're planning for that to have a significant overtime because if the employee, I think, has that choice whether they're going to take time this week or that same week or take overtime. So that's there. That's, I think, the same as last year. Replacement computer supplies, not asking for much. I think most of that is from coming from MIS as replacement. And then currently we have 68 FTEs. We stand. So moving on, population growth. How do we navigate that? Oh, okay. The bar, there we go. Okay, well, just know that FY26 is the far right. And you can go, if you're ready to go back. If we're in Arabic, it's severe. So around, these are the projections from Beaver, right? And FY20 would have been the census, but you can see it's still increasing significantly. And you'll see in a minute that the permits haven't necessarily increased, particularly into those big applications like comprehensive plan amendments and rezonings. What you get is on in other areas, such as complaints, such as what can I do on my property, and those types of things that with additional growth just comes additional requests. So I think despite the decrease in permits a little bit, we're still seeing significant requests and all the things that people go to the commission for, and the commission, of course, need answers and those types of things. So,
Mike, just so you know,
Yeah.
that if you watch like on GTV, they can see everything. It's
Oh,
just
good.
us, we can't.
okay, it's
Yeah,
just us.
no worries.
We're the limiting factor. Good. Okay.
Just
So-
I'm looking at it, it has all the ledgers and everything, yeah.
So that's just show you population growth.
I'm having a delay.
This happened yesterday.
Another challenge.
There you
No
go.
years.
All right, and this is basically the clearance inspections and development inspections. Clearance sheets are basically right as we move toward the horizontal construction. Those are yellow. And then development inspections, I think we're gonna need to go back. This might be it. Okay, it doesn't matter. You can see though, inspections were pretty hefty, particularly for the clearance in 23, 24. We dropped down a little bit in 25. The development inspections, which is more like technical inspectors going on site to make sure that drainage is accomplished appropriately, are the pipes installed, are the roadways safe, that sort of thing. Clearance inspections be usually individual lots looking at, is that lot graded appropriately? Before they start building. And then reviews, again, they're hand in hand, right? But reviews, you can see they pretty steady with submittal management, and that's basically all of our applications except for clearance sheets. And then clearance sheets have gone down a little bit, and that's probably reflective of what Howard was indicating. Single family has gone down a little bit. Single family makes up a lot of clearance sheets. But submittal management applications, right? They range from rezoning to a confirmation letter to what can I do with my property to a concurrency management. So there we have probably hundreds of different applications. So let me go back. No. So electronic workflow and process, this is to show you in FY20, you can see there to the far left, care sharing transactions. External would have been the electronic. So you could move, and then walk-ins would have been blue. So if you look, you can see how significantly that's changed, where people, it's much easier, right, to submit and deal with transactions online. Which begs the question, we didn't refill our cashiering position for that. We're augmenting that from other positions, and they do kind of pay, maybe 3 hours or 4 hours. One, next one does it the rest of the day. So we're seeing that. Likewise for submittal management, you're seeing an increase in that. It's still, a lot of them are apparently being brought in. However, architects, engineers, they tend to like that electronic process, and they're already in that world creating through CAD and things like that. So we have that, and then ultimate clearance sheets, you can see it's about 31%. So you still have a lot of people that want to bring it in face to face, but it is increasing and it's going that way, right? And we always have that process available for both mom and pops to be able to kind of have it. We will turn that play, of course. So just going backwards, what we received, remember for the Habitat Conservation Plan 400, I mentioned that the grant award. We're hoping we can get that distributed to us before we keep paying more, because we won't be able to go backwards, right? But it's there. We were able to last year get those utility vehicles and small terrain vehicles for the Habits for the Beach services folks. And that's helped a lot. They have to come on there and smooth out the sand, right? And get ruts and things for the turtles. So they have to do that daily. And they needed some vehicles to get out there and take more people than one sometimes to deal with an issue. For positions, we talked about GIS. Joy recently even talking about land management. We've had a good discussion with them. By the way, they give us great internal support. They always have. And we're in discussions with them now to help us fill these positions that we have for GIS. And they're important in that they can, map sometimes is a picture and it's worth 1,000 words, right?
Yeah.
So, but getting that position that can understand growth management, not just be a sole GIS in their own silo, is understanding our needs and be able to tell us what we could use, because we don't know what to ask for sometimes, right? So we're real excited about that, and Corey's already even reached out from land management, his GIS staff.
Would that position be helpful for development agreement tracking in terms of obligations and when it comes to transportation, when it comes to public services?
It could, especially if you wanted some sort of mapping component.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily linked to that. I do have other staff that are trying to track all that, because we have old agreements, right, that you're trying to track that's still valid. But it certainly could, and somebody like that would understand, and not just be solely GIS, that would be a primary function, but also understand how our submittal management, our big system works. And be able to know what you could create in that system that would just make it more efficient or better for the citizens.
I would just ask, when you work with Corey on that position, there may be a different position like that, an entry position. The dream would be the CIP portal that we do have can connect to your WATS system, where your development agreement obligations can be logged, so that it shows, okay, well, this section of the road, we're completing whatever, 30%. So the phase 3 will afford this development for the next 5 years. There are this amount of dollars that's going to be available for this kind of expansion. That would be really cool to have.
For sure, and we're already linking up with them. As you know, we have a PhD in Maya,
Yeah.
who's with us, and they're working on the model, the overall transportation model for the county to help us when a new development comes in. Ultimately, its use would be when a new development comes in, it's plugging in all these other factors that are accounted for, right? Here's this development on this road, this development on this road. It basically considers all of that and what is the ultimate effect, as opposed to maybe when you don't have a model, you're doing the best you can just by looking at the numbers and the traffic counts. But models, can have the more information you put into it, the better. So we're looking forward to that. That's being built as we speak.
Yeah.
So when that comes in, for sure, that integration, and then as you said, we can integrate other things too that people want to be able to link to.
Yeah.
Maybe it's kind of the one-stop shop,
Mhm.
kind of for
Yeah.
looking at that.
That would be nice.
Yep. And then lastly, just challenges. As you know, we've had some state laws recently that just, are frankly giving local governments some challenges to deal with. And that has in part postponed a lot of the things that we normally do, such as updating the comprehensive plan and things like that. And that takes resources and time away from other things. And we have some more that were just recently signed, which we need to delve into and understand. But we know when they go into effect, we need to be ready, such as like the rural agricultural enclave. And there's another one that deals with pre-applications and contractors and how they can basically come in. So we're evaluating all that right now. But it looks like this is continuing. That's a challenge for us. And then we have those updates. Our comprehensive plan did make it through the state and was adopted by the board. So we'll be coming through with changes to that. New technologies, we talked about artificial intelligence last year, Joy. I think that's still out there. There's a lot of startup companies. They tend to, we evaluate, we look at them, they give us a quick show of what they can do. And then the next thing you know, those software developers moved on to another company, these types of things.
They're volatile.
They really are, it's changing significantly, and the technology is changing significantly with AI as a broader picture with safety concerns and things like that. So we're going in a little cautiously. We know there are some services that maybe it's an AI that is contained, best it can be contained within St. Johns County that does some of those, rudimentary tasks. So that would help us and then allows staff to talk to people instead of counting 1,000 trees,
Right. Yeah.
So we're still looking at it. We just haven't landed on anything because I've come to you for appointments yet. And then employee and retain professional staff. I think I ended on that last year. All of this, right? I'm so fortunate for the people that we have in our part, and then for the county. They do a lot of work. We're facing development. It is not easy to deal with some of the things they have to deal with because we're of course enforcing code, and many think we're not forcing the code enough, and many think we're going too strict, and it's always that balance that you have to deal with, and they have to put up with a lot of crap, honestly, but at the end of the day, we're trying to serve the citizens best we can with that mission. So it's a balance. So I guess if you look at it, if we're getting hit from both sides, maybe we're doing something right. And we're going to continue to do that regardless of what happens. So but we're going to continue to try to keep good staff, and by sending them, getting their licensure, treating them with respect, getting the resources they need, hopefully we can keep them. So that's all I have. If you have any questions for me, please.
So I would say the same thing that I said to HT earlier, that your department is primarily regulatory department. And so instill a culture of customer service, which means how can I have my customers leave happy when you're trying to tell them that you can't do this, but you can do this, is very challenging. And I think you're doing as good of a job as HT is that is combining the two very distinct functions in one and do it a respectful way. So congratulations to that. Same thing with, I think that is in the context of the broad picture of arguably economic downturn or arguably different types of policy we have in place for managing the growth of St. Johns County. As a direct result, we are looking at different type of workload. I wouldn't say it's a less of workload, which is same thing I said to HT, that just because your number of permits have gone down doesn't mean your workload has gone down. It's different. In your case, I think 2026 is a very policy-heavy year for you and your staff. Congratulations, to you supporting the board to get a comprehensive plan update in place, despite of all the challenge and restriction that we have from the state. Impact fee update is no small task, and that is really well done. So now we have a good fee schedule that's good for the next 7 years, and with a good indexing in place. So that's good. Conservation plan that is underway with what is that, every 10 years update, every
Actually, I think this one is 20.
20 years. Okay.
So this is the first update.
Yeah.
It was created back then, was the first one.
Yeah. So yeah.
607.
So it seems like that there is a plan that this year is just now we can free up staff time to focus on these policy development, and you have accomplished quite a few big policy packages in this year. I think that the biggest and most impactful thing for your department in this year coming through, like you mentioned earlier, is the long-term transportation planning model that you have put in place and hiring the right talent to model the long-term transportation needs. Given the dynamic that we have with the state, a lot of preemption in prohibiting our ability to manage growth, a lot of work is going to be on the back end, which is mitigation. And how do we work through these preempted development without sacrificing our ability to ask developers to mitigate is going to be a huge task in 2027. I think you'll see developments coming through without even us having any ability to have any say in. Leaves your staff to be the one kind of holding the defense line. Okay, you have a development, but how are you going to mitigate impact? Of course, within the law, it allows us to do, but that is sort of a focus shift, I think, for your staff, and that's going to create a lot of work and going back and forth with the applicants. So I guess with all that said, is that the work is still ahead of us and just different. Yeah. Wade, do you want to, I mean, we have done that before,
Yeah,
economic development, do the just budget, overall budget?
Absolutely. And I'll kind of go, since this is the first time today, I'll just kind of go from the beginning on how to even get to there as well. So, so from the county's homepage, get there first. You can go, for those, in the room or at home, go to departments and divisions, and then you're going to want to find the office management and budget page. So you have to go to the directory, and then we are on page 2 of that directory. All right, and then from there, there's a FY27 budget page, and then we're kind of in the workshop session. So in that schedule, you'll see this budget sessions workbook, and that will take you to this third-party application where all of the financial information is available to you, and it's kind of by fund for each department. Growth management is within the general fund, and within the general fund, it's part of general government. So here is the growth management administration budget, and as Mike kind of mentioned, and here's a visual, primarily personnel, and with a little bit of operating, as Mike referenced, there is a reduction for fiscal year 27. I do want to highlight, so Mike kind of had these budgets within his, or these numbers within his presentation. I do want to highlight some of the other funding that Mike and his team help manage throughout the county. They are special revenue funds, so we have, I think they have just added it, hopefully it shows up. Yes. The land acquisition management program, so this is, funding set aside for conservation land. For fiscal year 26, it was a general fund contribution of $500,000. The board did approve after the budget was adopted an additional one-time transfer from the tree bank fund, and it was anticipated to be a one-time transfer. So for fiscal year 27, it is back to a $500,000 transfer from the general fund. And there are funds available. There's a list of priority list of properties that the team kind of pursues and sees what comes forward. So in addition to the LAM funding, there is new with the impact fee update. There is a new conservation impact fee, and it is new. We've seen very little activity so far in it. You'll see no budget for 26 because it wasn't not part of our adopted budget, but rough estimates right now are about 100,000 available through the end of fiscal year 27 with whatever activity. Now, these are rough estimates. We'll kind of trend it as we see more activity there. So, and then finally, there is also kind of part of the conservation area is the tree bank fund. So, again, this was the one-time transfer from tree bank to LAMP for fiscal year 26, but there are some other activities that growth management helps with some of our Roma sites, as well as even other county properties and facilities also have use of these funds, but primarily it is for the Roma sites. So just want to kind of highlight, in addition to growth management, there are some other activities, other funding sources. So, you know, available or that are helped manage through growth management. So. Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning. Good morning. We'll be starting today. Desiree Warner, the HR Director and Risk Management Director. I'm going to be co-presenting with Laura Dodd, who will present the risk management portion. And then Ann Ashworth is here to provide us with her excellent support and help us keep track of information that you might ask for. We need to provide that. So we're going to start with all things HR. Just
give me a second.
It's a little slow sometimes. This is just a real broad brush of what we do. And so it is a gamut of employee life cycle, training, risk, we have policy, time and attendance, health and wellness, and handle accidents, property, just the whole gamut of an employee life cycle and human resources and risk management for the county. And if we could go to the next page, we do this with a love and compassion and care for our county employees that we hope are able to bring their best selves to the office every day to provide services to our citizens and the departments. And so we really do enjoy the work we do. The team is phenomenal. They show up every day and just are embracing this love for helping St. Thomas County. And we also really love some other things that we get to do, like working with the animals here, and then of course the people, which is our primary goal. This is the org chart for the department. We currently do have 24 people working with us. That is 23 and a half regular positions, and we have one part-time person working as a tip. We do have, most of our positions are full. We have a couple that we are still recruiting for, a FMLA coordinator and a business system analyst. Our most recent hire we have is going to be focusing on our payroll to help all of the time and attendance questions that we get with the transition to Workday. And so we think that's going to be a really big impact bringing that individual on. And so we'll see that she's going to be joining us on the 27th. The national average right now for our size is 26.84 personnel to work with this size of an organization with 1,579 employees. We are still under that because of the dedication, knowledge, and skills that we have. But we are going to be asking for another FTE, which is an office assistant. And primarily that position is going to be the greeter of the department. And we're going to have a reorg of our front entrance, and that person would be at the face of the department and greeting people coming in, helping with directions that they might need, but also handling new employees that come on site, the badging that they perform, and just general administrative work that currently our senior admin coordinator is handling, but is now focusing more on the financial aspects and scheduling and purchase orders and that kind of thing. And so this person will handle more again of that reception. We have somebody doing that part-time right now, and we are getting great value of that. And so we're looking to make that full-time regular position.
Would that replace the temp receptionist?
It would.
Okay.
So just a little bit about the organization, our employees. We provide this just snapshot looking back. We're still really keeping about the same as far as the age of our workforce. Our compensation is teetering up a little bit, and our years of service has actually gone down. And we see that when we have our service awards and we see our retirements, our people who are here, we get a lot of people who are at the 25, 30, 35 mark. And so that is coming down just a little bit in the years of service, but we are really holding, if we'll go to the next page, give you an example. This is our turnover. And I showed it so that we could really look at it, because in the current data, it is not a full year. And so last year when we were at the same point, we were lower in positions. We had 1,514. We had 75 separations. And at that time, our turnover rate was at 4.95. Well, if we look forward now to this year, we're at the same area. We have more employees, less separations, and we're at 3.36. And then the result of the full year of fiscal year 25 is now reported, and it's showing that we did go down to 13.59 for last year. So our turnover rates are still holding good, and that's because of our culture, our great compensation, our benefits. And so I think that we're really doing great in the programming that we have. This is the look at our ages of the organization, and it's interesting because we have basically a 50-50 tie on our Generation X and our millennials. And so that is really from the age of 30 years old to 60. So primarily that's where we have, and it's about 50-50 on that, with the average age of being 44. And so when we look at those age generations, there's different skills that they bring, different knowledge. And so we have quite a mix to contribute to the work. Some of the trends that we are going to be focusing on in 2026 is really looking at developing our leaders, what we're looking at in innovation, employee engagement, retention, and recruiting. That's tracking with what we've identified as goals for the team. Laura will talk more about the risk management trends, and that is cybersecurity, the organizational resilience, regulatory changes, the environmental health and safety hazards, and then really our workforce and risk culture, and she'll give you some nice information on that. If we could stay here for just a moment, though, I did want to share some information about some of the things that we have done, and let me just read that. All right, so for fiscal year 25-26, we had a lot of collaboration, and we were able to advance some really important initiatives. We implemented the medical insurance eligibility from 60 days to 30 so that our employees would be able to get health care sooner for their families. We also permitted the use of accrued leave after 30 days, and prior to that, it was 6 months. And so employees really weren't able to get that appointments they needed, prescriptions they needed, and so that was one thing that we were able to change, and we think that's really great as far as the recruitment and retention. We also eliminated tuition repayment penalties so that employees who come through and take advantage of the programs aren't having to worry about paying those back in a couple of years if they should leave. We're just giving them the opportunity to take it, grow with us, and succeed, and don't worry about that. We introduced compensatory time, which is a way that you can bank hours for your overtime that is worked instead of getting paid out for that overtime, should you want to do that for saving some time up to take for vacation or sick leave or some of those kinds of things. That's really helpful for some employees who do come out and they may have in their first year not enough accrued time, but they've worked some overtime, they can trade that out for that. It also helps reduce, of course, our overtime pay. And so that's been a great program, and we were able to just roll that out in January because Workday is now able to accommodate that. So employees are taking advantage of it. We also partnered with departments to explore and implement career progression strategies. We still have a long way to go on that, but we've made some progress with different departments, and we are hoping that they're putting some of that budget request forward. What that progression looks like is if they take certifications or they've completed degrees or certain courses is one way. We're also looking at putting something together for an administrative track where they would be able to take certifications that are applicable for office management, those kinds of things. And so we're working on that track. And that may also include years of service so that they're recognized and we can retain them in those important roles. And so making some great progress with that. We updated the performance management process that now aligns with anniversary dates, and we have revised the criteria for evaluating the employees based on feedback, so it's more relevant and timely. And that's going really well. I think we had over 200 completions so far, and we've gotten great feedback on that. And we are able to make adjustments as needed in that area. The other thing that we did is we were repurposed some of our existing HR positions, took opportunities when we had vacancies to add important roles like strategic planning, employee relations, benefits administration, and compliance management, because we see that there's some areas that we needed to strengthen. And so we converted some vacancies and were able to hire some excellent candidates for that. So it didn't increase our FTEs, but made us more strategic and able to provide better service and resource. And a very big accomplishment is that we transitioned from the legacy systems that we had to Workday to modernize electronic processes and data analytics. Now, we're just now starting to become more familiar and comfortable with the tool, and we're starting to develop focus groups to see how we can help capture in areas that people are having some challenges, to help with training initiatives, working closely with MIS and the ERP team as a group now, so that when we come together, we're on the same page and it becomes more synergistic and efficient and a better product for all of the employees to do their work. An example of that is our badging and creating the process that we are able to capture with new hires, to the security that go into Workday, to them being able to go out into the department and be ready on day one to do their work. So that kind of stuff is happening as a result. So excited about that. We've been participating on the employee newsletter, sharing information about our benefits, social aspects, compliance issues, those kinds of things. We're starting to put tips in there for did you know, just on the spot kind of tips for the employees that would be helpful. We've started wellness series for mental health so that people can come and just learn more about how to care for elder parents or stress reducers, that type of programming. We've been able to engage with our Lincoln consultant for 457 deferred comp. We've started to work with that group more directly on the offerings they provide and making sure the employees' money that they're saving for retirement is really being, I would say, making sure that the money is safeguarded, that the investments are good, and just that we're taking care of them financially as well. Some of the other things we had, we participated in the Florida County Legislative Day, and that was great. One of our team members is a long-standing member of the community, and so she was able to contribute greatly in that area. We are working with public information on creating a better HR hub so that the employees will have a resource they can go to for either training, anything they might want to learn about, or how do I become this? You know, we're really hoping that that is some more of an engagement platform for the employees and organized in a way that it makes sense. And so we've just rolled out some of those enhancements, and we're excited about that. The team is keeping themselves relevant and timely with certifications in FMLA, specific recruitment certifications. We have some individuals that are taking their professional HR programs. They're increasing their joining bachelor programs. And so everybody really feels, I think, that energy of wanting to increase knowledge to provide support to the community. We've also, I'm personally taking some labor relations classes because we've been doing quite a bit of that. So I'm wanting to make sure that I'm bringing my best self to those conversations. And so that's just been really exciting. And so the support that you all provide with that kind of funding has been, I think, very worthwhile. I just wanted to mention that. And then we're going to be moving over to really focusing on developing leaders. And so just this week, we just put out a training program that's designed for supervisors that's going to focus on some of the basics, like leave time. How do you manage it? Risk and safety. What are some of the things that are just the low-lying fruit that we can communicate with you? How do you handle the Family Medical Leave Act? What are some of the workplace regulations that you need to know about? How do you have those conversations? And so we're really kind of getting down to just the basic kinds of things, and then we'll grow on that. So some of the things we'll move to after that basic foundation is that we'll be working on recruitment and hiring. How do you develop your job classifications that really give you what you need in a position? What are the best outlets for recruiting? Questions, you know, how do they fit within the organization and the type of people that you're looking for? Smart interviewing. We're rebranding and doing our onboarding program so that it does prepare the employees on their first day in the best way that they know more about the county, our mission, the expectations of their job, where to find things, where the training is. And so we're really working a lot on improving that. As well as we're hoping to bring in budgetary training and procurement training and those kinds of things, data protection. So we're going to work with our partners, and when timing's right, pull them into the calendar. But right now we're planning to do these weekly, and we'll build on it as we can. And if we have other priorities that come up, we can certainly, revisit them, reschedule those. But we're also giving the employees the opportunity to check with their supervisors, make sure that they have the time to go to these events, to get the training, to make sure that it is relevant. And we are super excited about some of the programming that's coming out in regards to training and development. Some of the information that you'll see in the budget request is to support these efforts. And so I think we are ready to move on a little. So here is what we are going to be requesting is around 432,800. That's going to include new technology and integrations. With the new technology that we have, I have a list that I'll go through in the next slide, but it also does have a cost when you integrate now into Workday. So we're trying to include that in our budget. We also have some important renewals that we have requested. We have continuing education and training, that programs that we are going to be asking to support, recognition programs. That's something that I promoted last year, but we didn't really see a real implementation of that due to our focus on Workday. And so now we want to revisit that and really put those into action. The other thing is looking at talent acquisition, advertisement, screenings, and interviews. We've got some AI types of platforms there that we believe will be really excellent to help us be more efficient and have the team just focus on partnering with the hiring managers and giving more attention to the candidates instead of doing all the clerical things that they're immersed in right now. Compensation classification is another platform that we are looking at. The team on a daily basis will do equity evaluations analysis by going out to various partners. And so it's a manual process. They call, they email, glean their websites to give a hiring manager what they might expect for an analyst or a GIS person. And so we're looking at that to make sure we're competitive, but it takes a long time. Mm-hmm. So there is a program that we've been looking at that would help us standardize that. We are looking at a vehicle for the employee relations team that is to help us to deploy out to the various locations. Right now, the team is using their personal vehicles, of course, getting the reimbursements, but our gas prices are high, the insurance is high. And so we've now looked at, we're out so much that it would be helpful to have that. So we requested that. And again, I have listed the new FTE for the reception area that will be now based in the atrium, and it is going to be having more interactions with the public and also some increased duties that they receive. Now, just going into a couple more slides on the support of this information is that the budget request we have is devoted to employee success. So we are going to be developing our leaders, putting more information on analytics, on survey tools that we can deploy out to the different departments to see that our trainings are relevant, that the feedback they give us, if it's something that they didn't think the content was good, we want to know about that up front so that we can build a program that will be more traditional for them instead of just doing it on our own. Onboarding, I already talked about. We also are looking at resolving conflicts. So we do want to do more in regards to how do you provide feedback? How do you handle disagreements? How do you establish expectations? How do you hold people accountable? And so some of the focus we will be working in those areas. And also, again, the recognition programs that we would have for the Bravos and hopefully doing an employee of the month instead of just the employee of the year. So those are still areas of priorities for us. We just were delayed with our implementation. So we're putting that back on the table. Mm-hmm. Technology-wise, it does speak to our strategic initiatives to improve retention, enhance onboarding, professional development. That is one of our goals. We want to streamline hiring and strengthen our talent pipeline. We've got a lot in the works in regards to internships, in regards to our staffing agencies, and really hoping to improve the candidate experience so that we're organized and it's an easier process and the hiring managers are able to select really good talent. We've looked at multiple programs. One and a lot of these are workday delivered programs, but there are other programs in the market. But typically they do involve AI. And so with the survey, this was really interesting. The AI will generate the appropriate questions. They do automatic timing. It actually shows you gaps. It helps you focus on the results of those surveys, and it becomes very useful and reliable data than if we were to create them on our own and start deciphering and trying to build programs. This actually is more intuitive, and so that's one of them. The other one is that we would like to have an ER hub, Workday ER hub, where we are actually tracking what are the employee relations issues we're working on, what departments, how are they getting resolved, really go into the analytics there. So that, again, it's a manual process right now, but what we like to really look at, what does the information mean and how can we improve in those areas? What training and development should we be looking at in order to make those employee relations issues less? The other one is called Workday Paradox or similar. This again is an automatic AI program that would help with candidate communication 24/7, answering questions, helping to establish interviews, looking at the workflow. In general, trying to create a more streamlined and more intuitive experience. Right now, the team is doing a lot of manual work, and some of that is due to learning the functionality of the program for Workday. Some of that is still being developed. And so when we get a pool of 100 people right now, they're going through all of those and looking at them where this program would help to look at the minimums that were programmed, but that we say for this job, and we'll show you from your pool of 100 what their strengths are, what areas that education, that kind of thing. And so it helps increase the efficiency, but it also helps with the scheduling components, and it's just more professional. The other one is the pay scale or true comp or something similar. Again, a platform that our comp and class team would be able to use that will bring in multiple county information. It has standardized classification descriptors. It has refresh titles that are more commonly used now. It helps us look at internal equity, external equity, and at our fingertips. So right now, again, there's a lot of time that the team spends every day over and over and over and over, when we could be talking to the departments about their position control or their career progression, and just really providing smarter, better service instead of the delay that we have right now because they're doing a lot of manual work. So that is really our ask this year for the HR side of the house. I'm going to pause and answer any questions, and then Laura will talk to you about the risk management, give an overview, and she has a couple items to also talk about with budget. Okay. So any questions right now, or we want to wait to the end?
I don't have any questions, but I have some comments. We can wait until the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
My turn. Thank you so much. A pleasure to be here. I'm happy to take the next couple of hours and explain all of the fun things we do, right? That's what I got, right?
No, you
Say a
got it.
couple of hours. Right. I'm kidding. I could talk about it all, but want to say, first of all, I'm so happy to be here. Last week, I was able to celebrate my 30th year. Starting way back in the day with babies, and now they're grown adults, and this organization has been very good to me, and so I'm feeling a bit excited about making those 3 decades and to have this time to talk to all y'all today. So you want to go ahead and move on. There's a little snapshot of what we do. Most of y'all pretty much know what we're all involved in, but I like to give a little bit of snapshot for maybe some new people that may have never heard of me or our wonderful team. We have 6 of us. You may know that this year was an extremely hard year for us because we lost our beautiful Laquita in February. And so where some years are really impactful for the organization, walking through that past after losing someone who worked up until the day she passed was very, very hard for us. But we picked up us by the bootstraps and kept on moving on. So you can go ahead and take me to the next one if you don't mind. So here's a little bit about us, another snapshot of six of us on the team. We are currently interviewing for the vacancy. That person's going to be primary for our FMLA. I have a very small budget for risk, but we try to stretch those dollars as best we can. As you can see, that's a snapshot of 755 claims from last year, but it's a 35% increase over the fiscal year before that. But those are all different levels. I put a little portfolio there in that one corner just to show you the different claims. They're not all workers' comp. They're auto, they're general liability, property, and legal, of course. So a little bit, I'm going to talk to you about a couple of asks. Will be a little bit about what's coming up with the legislation has given us for sovereign immunity, and then also everything else is pretty much status quo. We are moving along very well with not having to ask for a lot more money to do our jobs. Go ahead, Angie, if you don't mind the next one. These are some highlights. Workers' comp is stellar. As you know, we've won a couple of awards from our counterparts, and we're real excited about that. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our great portfolio in our property that we have this year, because you know I do the property insurance for all of St. Johns County. You know, that's all the constitutionals as well as the Board of County Commissioners, and then that little bit of the award. You can go to the next one if you don't mind, Angie. Little bit about this is the renewal that we had this year. So one of the milestones we're going to be hitting with all those groundbreakings is that we are almost $1 billion in total insured value for our properties. So that's a big milestone for St. Johns County. We were able to go to our broker this year and work with and to get a phenomenal rate. One of the things that we lost in the past couple of years was this storm deductible. So that's your hurricanes, right? So when all those hurricanes were hitting Florida over the past 5 or 6 years, everything went to a 5% deductible. We were one of the first local governments to obtain a 3% storm deductible. They told us you would never see them again. And look at there it is. So that's 3% of your entire premium is what you would pay on a deductible. So that's a big difference. That's $500,000 to $1 million just in itself. So yay for the strong portfolio. We have been doing a lot of appraisals just to make us look very appealing, and that has really paid off over the past 3 years. That was appraisals that were free. Our broker did pay for all of that as well, so we were able to negotiate that. If you'll go on to the next one, because everybody loves a chart, right? This is one that I think can really show you, and if you look at it, if I could just stand up and show y'all too on this. So basically, starting back in 2007, and Sarah will remember these days, that was $850,000 was our premium. So over the years, once we switched brokers, we started doing some great negotiations thanks to Sarah, and then I came in and we really started making these adjustments. Then you had, of course, the 2008 to the 14, and then the storms start hitting. But you can see as this goes, this is our premium this year. So we are less than that 300, that amount here in 2026. So we're about 800. But look at these values. This is what we're paying for, and that is phenomenal. And that is with the growth. This is our the value of our buildings, right? So you can see steadily growing. We're putting those fire stations in. We're building those water plants. We're doing everything else. So we're almost to that $1 billion mark. And I will tell you, we're going to pass that $1 billion mark with the new water reclamation facility, right, on 207. That's probably going to be our highest value property that we've ever had. So with that, that's why we're anticipating that $1 billion. But because of that, because we're getting these phenomenal rates, we are getting a bigger difference in our covered values and getting that 3% back for the thing. So it's been a phenomenal renewal session for us. Okay, you can flip to the next one. Workers' compensation, another feather in our cap. We've been able to have one of the best rates in the state. That's what we've been recognized with. Last year was 0.51, which was historic. This past year, we're at 0.55, still absolutely amazing. And for someone that may not understand, basically the Florida average is 1.0. So you can look at that like for every dollar spent that's towards your premium. So typically that's $1. So we're paying 55 cents on the dollar for the coverage, which is coming back to being about $1.5 million savings on a premium that you have to pay, because everybody has to have workers' comp for their, unless you're just a single individual. So that's very exciting. Claims have seen a little bit of growth, but I'll tell you what we found in the claims is that because we're really making all the departments report those injuries right away. We don't want them to hold off and not tell us about it, because the longer they wait to tell us, the more vulnerability they have that it will be denied. So we're seeing those claims increasing because of the reporting. You can go to the next one. Two asks this year. One we would like to do is because the House Bill 145, the legislature has decided, and this has finally landed, this has been talked about for a decade, but that sovereign immunity, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we're asking for $40,000 to help us with claims that we are anticipating could come up with that. And then number two, we're asking for a driving simulator. It's a portable simulator that we can take around to the departments, and they can actually simulate driving fire engines and dump trucks and all the things, because we don't have the, we used to have a track we used to go to with the FCTC, but people can't get out there. The business is just too busy for their day. So we want them to try it out. You know, we got a lot of gamers on our teams now, and they can simulate weather and all kinds of wonderful things. And so we're bringing that forward. That's a high dollar. We're hoping to get something less, maybe more like the $9,000 to $12,000 amount, but we put a little wiggle room in there just in case something comes back like that. But that would help, because obviously y'all see the traffic, y'all see how busy our roads are. 70% of our accidents are not our fault. They are at other people's expense, unfortunately. So we just want everybody home safe every day. Go ahead and take to the next one. So this is a little bit more about House Bill 145. So currently, as most of you are aware, sovereign immunity protects us as a local entity in the state of Florida. The cap now is $200,000 for someone to sue us. That's the most they can get unless they take a bill to the floors of the legislation at the state level. So now it's going to go up to $350,000 is what someone can sue us. So $200,000, a lot of organizations, legal departments don't really go for a $200,000 claim, because they get half, your claimant gets half, but now you're starting to get $350,000. So that's a little bit more lucrative. Your Morgan & Morgans and your Fair & Fairs, they form letter us all the time. But this one, now those other legal departments, they're going to start paying attention. And that's why our counterparts are telling us you're probably going to see a bigger volume happen because of that. So we would like to have earmark some money so we're not caught short-staffed. And we'd like to see, we've figured about 40,000 maybe starting around January could help give us a little wiggle room, because we pride ourselves, my whole team, our team is responsive, and this will help us be responsive just because we'd be in the middle of that. All right, next one. Oh, that's supposed to start October 1st, once the governor signs it. Here's a little bit more about the little simulator. I thought I'd give y'all a little look of what that might be. It's completely portable. Now I know there's $1 million ones you could do with a trailer and, really make you feel like you're at NASCAR or something, but we're not going that big. We are very responsible with our money. So we're going to start out with this little small one, see how it does. It's got a gas pedal. It's got a steering wheel. I can't wait. I hope that this gets approved, because I think this would be really exciting for our teams out there to kind of have that hands-on. And love that ROI, right? 12 to 1. That's what they're telling us. People are really, it really is helpful, and it's coming back, because I'm always like, what do we get out of it? If I'm going to ask y'all for money, I want to know what I'm going to get out of it to make us look better. Next. this is my wrap up, just to let y'all know, just a little bit about millions saved in our little bit of money that you do give us. We try to stretch it as far as possible. We want to keep bringing you back those awards because that's how we save the taxpayers' money. If they're recognizing it, we're gonna make it work. And then, of course, everything else that's to come. There's so much more that I could absolutely tell you, but we're always looking to the future. Business is busy in our part of the world, so thank you so much. Yeah.
I'm just ready for any questions that you have.
Okay, well, thank you so much for the amazing work and then the scorecard that you're sharing. Risk Manager of the Year.
Yeah. Oh, bad.
Yeah. Just a
I could have
small
brought the awards, but Brad will make me yell if I drop one. Brad,
What's that?
I said I could have brought all my awards if I wanted. I don't know.
There's too many.
It's just too many to carry now, right? And that's a team approach too. That's all of us working together. That is just not a single effort by any means. And they give so much. And they've all stepped up with our loss this year to really, really do so much. And we really appreciate, and I appreciate that they're giving me the time to be able to share all that too, because they all matter. We try to care for those employees like our own family. And I think those real dollars invested in those employees bring back that savings and people are not getting hurt. So that's a good thing.
Annie, you have anything to share?
I think they covered everything really well.
Good. Well, thank you for Desiree and then leadership team's leadership to lead in HR. And I think that certainly the innovation has been the theme of past year, actually, since the arrival of Desiree. I know, Desiree assembled a wonderful leadership team to look at different functions. I want to point out that the challenge of functioning a universal HR team in a local government is incredible. You don't have just one business to support. You have 22 businesses to support. All of them are unique in their own way, to their own operation. And so you almost have to customize a leadership training program for each director and their leadership, and career progression plan for each department. The librarian's progression is very different from our utility department progression, and is very different from our emergency management. So you guys do a really amazing job with the amount of work that you have to do to customize your support to, and not only to the employees, but you're supporting a organization. And through that, you have to support employer and employee. And there is a lot of a balancing that you have to do, not only protecting us as an organization, as an employer, but at the same time, helping our individual employee to thrive. So that's a lot of considerations to be had to design what you do. So that is amazing. And also do that in the mix of transforming from our old system to a new ERP system. So you guys are doing multiple jobs at once, and going through all the challenges that we're faced with transitioning from a integrated system to a new system, and learning the system, building the system all at the same time. So thank you for what you do. I don't really have any questions. Wade, do you want to go through the budget real
Sure.
quick? And I know Desiree will come back as our last day. We added this year a new session to just go through the FTE and new FTE requests. So we will need your help to guide us through that process. Okay.
So both HR and risk are within the general fund, and then I'll actually kind of get into some of the other funds, the internal service funds, and go through those just a little bit. Here's the HR budget, kind of split between personnel and operations. The vehicle in there is one little bit of capital there. Here's the line item budget with, again, the vehicle highlighted here as well. Really no questions here. You kind of went through some of the requests there for the technology increases. Yeah, I do want to kind of highlight, so, and this is really across the board, you'll see there's a couple of benefits you see related to each department, right? So those, and I'll get over to the internal service funds. What these are the life and health insurance and workers' compensation. And you can see how low workers' compensation is, thanks to our great experience we've had. Those aren't payments necessarily. Within the departments, they're payments to another fund. So they both, all of these individual department, health insurance, workers' comp, all get transferred over to an internal service fund one for health insurance, one for workers' comp. And then our premiums, our claims, and all of the activity is actually paid for out of those funds. So it's kind of showing an expense twice. The individual departments are paying it, but they're paying it kind of to ourselves, to another fund within the county. And then we're actually paying the premiums and activity within those other funds. So it does have an effect, those internal service funds, of duplicating or double counting those expenses. But I think the best way to show it is part of an operation. This is what it takes, for human resources department, their staff, the costs related to those staff. So just kind of wanted to point that out, and then we'll get into the risk management budget. Like Laura said, small but mighty. Really not a whole lot of increases, actually a little bit of decrease on the salary side, increase related to on the operations, probably related to your
It should be-
simulator.
Yeah, simulators and workers' comp, but
And
it's
workers' comp,
it's the
okay.
contractual. is what that
Okay.
is.
That's right, for the temp
40
staffing.
Yeah,
Okay.
for the temp staffing, and that's the only increase.
And then the kind of the other thing, Laura referenced the property insurance, liability insurance, the savings there, and you won't see those savings all in one place either, because that is in this insurance line, and this is spread across all the departments too. So all of those savings really doesn't apply to one department. It actually benefits the entire county. So, and then, like I mentioned, those internal service funds. Let's collapse some of this. Sorry.
Before you go there, may I ask, was overtime just missed for both risk and for HR? Because I'm not seeing it for 27.
Oh, there's no budget for overtime.
Right. There should be, right?
Okay.
So we'll add it.
We'll have to
Okay.
capture that. All right, so then you have, again, your workers' comp, and I don't think these are fully formatted yet, but so this is where workers' comp is, and it is a reduction of what the national average, that 1.0 rate is. We are at a 45% reduction on that currently. We are, there's again, additional cost savings there spread across all departments. Really no questions there. Great work on that.
So as you kind of scroll through this, I realized that internal services with the grouping health insurance is also sort of part of this function. So we don't have really designated area to discuss this. And I do want to thank the team to support our board liaison and also the insurance committee to come up with recommendations in terms of tailoring our insurance policies to support employees. And one thing for the ones who don't know, the county is a self-funded health insurance policy that is supporting all of our constitutional officers. One challenge that we're working through, and Jesse's left, Jesse and I had been working with all the constitutional officers, and of course supporting our board liaison, is to looking at long-term sustainability of our insurance policy and at what level of subsidy is sustainable for us as an organization, with the consideration how we can continue to make affordable and having a healthy coverage for our employees. With that said, I think we'll be looking at the executive team meeting with all the voting members, and I'll likely to make some recommendation to evaluate the long-term indexing options for all of our employees that is affordable, but at the same time keeping the counties and eventually our taxpayers' subsidy to be more sustainable. What alarmed me was the 15% subsidy recommendation by our consultant, which is substantial on a basis of a $30 to $40 million annual subsidy in the health insurance. So I wanted to at least mention that, so that it doesn't come as a surprise. But I realize it is more of a managed by the voting members of the insurance committee. And ultimately, our Board of County Commissioners have to approve or modify any plans that we have moving forward. The other thing, just food for thoughts, which is more timely in terms of additional innovative policies we can evaluate. One is, of course, driven by the high fuel costs. I know we have had considerations for work remote policies for our employees. I think it's more timely now to eventually look at a more robust policies that is more customized to each department. And I realize Public Works, if you have staff that has to be on site, the working remote is not necessarily an option, but it could be for GIS analysts, it could be for even HR staff, it could be for different departments. So I think it is time for us to look at a more robust work remote as an added benefit for employees and added benefit for efficiency. Because that also has side benefit for providing the resource, providing the workspace and all of that. Realize it's more of a driven by what is the cost increase for employees, but at the same time, I think philosophically, it is a good thing to look at as the overall retention recruitment tool as well. And the other thing is that Angie and I had talked about, and I think, Angie is taking the lead on this AI overall kind of evaluation of what the county's doing. I realize a lot of employees use AI tools to support what they do. Having a safety guard on how we're going to use AI without compromising our compliance requirement for HIPAA, for sensitive information is very crucial. So working with Angie, I think at Desiree, it's probably time for us to push out a foundational AI policies for employees to make sure that we're not sacrificing the safety of data, since everything is public record. And then the AI regulation is still catching up. So we don't necessarily know exactly what the guidelines is, other than we know we have a fiduciary responsibility for the integrity of our data.
But would just take the opportunity to say that we have been working on an employee handbook and looking at some of those AI policies and looking at remote policies as well, and creating just some standard language. And we have a meeting actually today at 1 to continue our work on that. And so we have different members of our team. I created it. Now we're looking at it. How does it work? What do we need? And then we'll get that draft to the administration to look over. Nothing really far off from our code, just more of the processes and some of those things that are not in code that would normally go into an employee handbook. And so we've done a lot of work on that. It started back when Lillian was here, and it was we had a contractor that started on that. We really have made a lot of progress in the last couple of months, and so we plan to have a final draft to present, I would say in 1 to 2 months maybe, but that window is pretty short considering how long it's taken. But there are some of those elements in it, and we'll highlight that so that we have all of the legal review, the departmental review, so that it's everybody's comfortable before we roll that out.
Sounds good. And the other thing I think it's, comparatively it's a little different is for all board members. Certainly we don't have the work remote policies for our board members, and they're in the community all the time. If we can work with legal to see how we can support their increased travel costs within the boundary of the law, of course, that can be very helpful, because I don't want that to be a prohibiting factor for them to be able to go into the communities, because that's what they're tasked to do.
Yeah, some of the work that we have looked at with regards to travel did come at a departmental request. And so we were also working with Olga on that to see what parameters we had. And so we've done a little bit of work on that. So we just need to push it to the next level.
That's good. Thank you so much. Anything else?
Just thank you for everything. Thank you for all the work you do for my departments and the others. And then you have a lot of fires to put out daily.
Yeah. Well, we have a great team, and that is really how we get the work done. And so we love that everybody has that passion, and when they come to work with us, we do take our time when we're choosing our new team members so that they're bringing something new to the table that they can contribute, but that also foundationally they have to have the love and passion for the work. So
Absolutely.
I think that's how we do.
Yeah, very true. Well, I'll see you on the last day.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, that's great.
Thank you. Well, we're on time for